It's been a hot minute since we've got a big information dump for PAX Day. Today they dropped the Tech FAQ. In this they go over some things about the provinces and the different nomenclature that they use for different regions, the smallest region being a home valley, which is essentially the part of the world that is phased, which I'm going to get into. So basically this chart here kind of breaks it all down. Obviously, you're going to choose a US server. On US servers, there's going to be multiple shards, and we know at one point the max that they're looking for is like 20K. And they say in here that they're going for 7,000 players currently, and part of the reason for that is the map's not completely built yet, and they're still working on the tech and everything behind it. So for the alpha test coming up, the cap will be 7,000 players. And then within a server, or a shard that they call it, you have regions of the world. And then within regions, you have provinces. Within provinces, there are home valleys. And as I said before, these home valleys are actually, each one of these is housed on its own server. And so as you step from one valley to another, or out into this zone between the valleys, you're actually stepping to a different server, but it's supposedly seamless. Now, they also say that you cannot see, as you're on the edge of this, you cannot see players over on this other edge, but it does sound like that is something that they eventually want to have. It just doesn't currently exist. And this is where maybe a little bit of controversy has come in. And I'll be honest, I have some mixed emotions on this discussion, but these home valleys, the smallest part that's actually on its own server, can actually become phased. Now, it's not like the mega servers where it's like everybody clumped in and they just add a bunch of channels. You're still on one server and you can still see like all the buildings that are in place and things like that, no matter what phase you end up on. But there is phasing, and the current limit is 150 per phase. But that number is going to go up. That's kind of the starting number. So people are a little worried about that. And I'll admit, to some extent, I am as well, because for PvP, I think that creates potential issues. I'm not in general like a huge fan of phasing. I think phasing works fine in servers where the open world really doesn't matter, like in World of Warcraft or ESO, where they do have that mega server technology. But in games where the open world is said to matter, I think that can be a bigger challenge to make work. But this is all on paper. We haven't seen it. Let's see it. Let's test it. They'll iterate on it. They'll make it better. And let's see how it works. The way they describe it in here is, again, 150 players, but expected to change with hardware and optimizations. And it's for peak hours, and they also kind of mention that it's something that you might see at the beginning of a server, but once after the server launches, months down the line, may not see a whole lot of phasing, especially when after that 150 number goes up. Now, in PvP situations, you might have that kind of thing. So I did ask some questions on the Discord, and they actually got answered by Spire, and I'm going to show you guys that in a minute. But they've kind of hinted that the PvP zones might be quite a bit bigger in terms of the cap on players. So that might answer that. A lot of the rest of this is mostly tech stuff that isn't super relevant for us gamers, but interesting to read through if you get a chance. No PVE specific servers. I think we pretty much knew that already, right? 7,000 per shard at the start, and there's going to be 3 to 4 Heartland provinces at the start. They've talked about latency, like the combat's going to be lenient to reduce the effect of latency. They do want to have character transfers. This is something new. You're not going to be able to transfer your buildings, obviously, but you will get a blueprint to save your structure kind of layout. This kind of reminds me of Ashes of Creation with the when your freehold or something gets destroyed in a siege, or even your in-node housing, you'll get blueprints for all the things inside your house and outside your house to quickly kind of put it all back together once you find a new location. Similar kind of story here. They are open to third-party programs. And then I wanted to go through the stuff that Spire posted on Discord. I did ask if larger scale PvP is confirmed, and he said at some point in time. So this is something I've kind of wanted to know the answer to for a while, and eventually they are going to have larger scale PvP. However, larger scale siege PvP. However, at some point in time, I almost take that as probably a after launch maybe type thing, which would be fine as long as it's not too far after launch. He thinks that there's going to be multiple types of PvP scenarios which will behave a bit differently, because I asked the question, will there be bigger phasing limits for PvP areas than for PvE areas? and sort of kind of answered that, you know, potentially, I don't know exactly what that means, I'll be honest, but you can, I guess, read into that however you would like. Seamless as possible in terms when you go into a PvP like instance, it's still going to be probably part of the open world and you just walk into it would be my guess. You're not going to queue up for it. PvP will have custom rules of engagement to prevent this once the gameplay that includes large-scale fights happens. So this person was talking about, yeah, you couldn't just have a 150-person army that just controls one phase. And again, I think it's going to be bigger than 150 for the PvP areas. That's just based on the way I've read a lot of these responses. Yeah, and here's the answer. We're also hoping we could have a separate instance that's PvP specific for that purpose so we can run more players in those areas. So in PvP areas, more players. Alpha date, he'd like to. It's pretty soon. Yes, he confirms that roughly the square kilometers of the phased zones, which are the valleys and then PvP areas, basically something roughly the size of those valleys. It's going to be 10 to 11.4 square kilometers. And when you start squaring things, you know, the numbers get pretty big. But that's like 2 to 3 kilometers wide and tall. So it's not as big as you think it is. 75 square kilometers of land that's handled by 7 different zones. These 7 zones are the phased ones. So that's how I did the quick little math. And, you know, there's big differences and variations in the size of these zones, right? So roughly it's 10.7 to 11.4. 150 is the current number. We'll hope that will go up a lot. So I bet it will. The main user experience goal of the world layers instances is that nobody ever notices they exist. So it's all seamless and it feels like you're just on one big open world server. Eventual target is much bigger. At one point they said 20K. Right now they're at 7K. A lot of people are saying in here like PvP is dead because of this. I mean, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge to make work, but we got to see how it works like in the actual game. You know, I can't say I'm like super wild about the idea of phasing. However, I get why they're doing it, and it's for performance reasons, right? So hopefully they can pull it off. I think for PvE, I don't have a problem with it in PvE at all. For PvP, I think it's a challenge to make work. And I think if worst case scenario, if they just find it doesn't work in PvP, then PvP areas, because we know there are distinct PvE areas and PvP areas, right? They could just literally make the PvP areas not have phasing. I mean, it's not like this is set in stone. Things change during development. We'll see what happens. Either way, it was a lot of new information. Glad to see a new information dump on PAX Day. We haven't gotten one in a while. Alpha is pretty soon. I wanted to go through this with you guys. They also put out a blog post today, basically announcing the FAQ. A little bit here about, by large, they're going to invite several thousand members to play PAX Day. And basically they're saying within a few weeks. So that could be anything from October through December. So it narrows it down, I guess, a little bit. It's not September. And then the rest of this is all kind of stuff you can read through. It's not really new information. Oh, the playable area is 300 square kilometers now. I'm not sure if we knew that yet. I think we may have known that, or they hinted at that before, but that's roughly the area that the 7,000 some players will be in per server in the alpha. So if the servers are 7,000 and if they're inviting thousands, maybe they're going to have one NA server with 7,000 people, one EU server with 7,000 people. Maybe that's what the alpha is. Just speculating. I don't know. Either way, alpha is soon, guys. I'm excited. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next video.